gonna start off by making our tofu stir fry. I have all my prep done here. I'm just gonna cut some more pepper, but I figured this was a great time to show you how to use proper knife skills. So first, when we pick up our knife, a lot of people's first intuition is to hold it as so, with their finger on the blade. However, if you were to hold it like this with more of a grip, it allows you to have more control over the knife. This will sort of mitigate any kind of slips that may happen if maybe you were to accidentally cut yourself. So I'm going to start off by cutting this pepper. I want to make sure that instead of having my fingers out as so, I'm going to make more of a claw shape. This will help protect the tips of my fingers. And again, holding the knife with the blade as so helps me control where the blade goes. So I'm going to start off by just simply cutting the top of the pepper. And then I'm going to cut the bottom of the pepper. I'll set those aside. And then I'm just going to make one cut right here. And as you see, the pepper will open up really nicely. Then I'm going to take all this excess membrane out. And I'm going to cut it into slices of how long I want the strips in my stir fry. So I feel like this is a good size. So I'm going to turn them over and cut some strips. Again, making sure I'm making a claw shape with my hand to protect my fingertips. And just simply cutting down. Now I have some nice strips for my stir fry. Now I'll move on to the top and bottom of the pepper I have as well. And just cutting more strips.
So while Alicia finishes chopping our red pepper here, I thought we could just take a minute to talk about the nutritional value of this meal. So when meal planning, we want to think about what makes a balanced meal. So we should always be considering how to include a grain or a starch, a vegetable and or fruit, protein, and dietary fats. So this meal is a great example of a way to include all of those things. So over here, we've got our rice. That in this meal would be our grain or starch. That can be substituted for other things like pasta or quinoa. We've got a good variety of vegetables, and that is really key. So vegetables are a great source of fiber, which is great for our gut health, great for regulating blood sugars, also great for keeping us feeling fuller longer. And when including vegetables in a single meal, or really just our overall diet, we want to include good variety, including different color. So here we've got our green broccoli, our orange carrots, and our red pepper, which looks very nice and appealing, visually appealing, but also again, great for nutrition. Different color vegetables and fruits provide different nutrients, different vitamins and minerals. In this meal, we're using tofu and edamame as our proteins. So those are soy products, great sources of protein. Again, this meal is very versatile, where we can also use chicken or beef or shrimp as our proteins as well. And then over here, we've got our dietary fats, which include olive oil and sesame oil.
So for the tofu stir fry, I'm going to now prepare the tofu. So I'm going to show two different options that we can use. First, I'm going to be cubing it, and then I'm going to be doing a tofu crumble. So when we're cutting the tofu, I'm just going to cut half. So I'm just going to cut about what feels about good. So I have 3 sections right here. I'm going to cut it again, and I usually do about 1 by 1 inch cubes. After I'm done cutting these, I'm going to let them marinate in a container for roughly about 20 minutes to an hour. The longer the better, but if you're short for time, that's okay too. So now I have some cubed tofu, and I only use half a cube, and that's generally enough for a full serving. Next, if this is something that might be a little bit difficult, or you're new to tofu, another option I really like to do is just a crumble. So really, you're just gonna get in with your hands and crumble the tofu.
And tofu really takes on the flavor of whatever you marinate it in.
For sure.
So that's where marinating it for longer will give it more flavor, and crumbling also I find gives it more flavor, right? As it's able to absorb more, kind of more surface area.
Absolutely. And it's a really simple option to do. As well, tofu's a great option if maybe you're someone that doesn't like eating meat, you're vegetarian, but even if not, it's delicious.
Very nutritious protein. Also very cost effective too, compared to meats.
Also, I know when some people start cooking or just in general are maybe intimidated by cooking with raw meat because it can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So tofu's a great option because it's definitely easier than cooking maybe raw chicken or beef. Mm-hmm. Now I have my cubed and crumbled tofu, and you can see half a block actually did make quite a bit for each serving. So next I'm gonna move on to the marinade. So I have some things here already prepped. So we're gonna start by doing a tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon of garlic powder. You can use fresh garlic if you want. I just find having garlic powder is usually more handy. A tablespoon of lime juice. And then 2 tablespoons of any kind of oil. I'm using olive. And then last, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So it's a fairly simple marinade, and it's really delicious as well once the tofu absorbs everything in it. Then we're gonna mix this all together and add our tofu and let it sit for about a minimum 20 minutes. So just like how I prepared my marinade, I prepared a sauce here as well. I just took all the ingredients, put them in a bowl, and whisked them all together.
Okay, so it's great that we have everything all prepared before we start cooking. This is really helpful in decreasing stress and helping with time management.
For sure. I think we're ready to start cooking. Now that I have my tofu marinated, it's time to add it to the pan. So I put enough oil just to cover the pan. I used olive oil, and I've heated it up about a medium-high heat so that when we add our tofu, it's gonna give a nice sizzle. This is really gonna help it have that crispy, nice texture. So I have a lot of extra marinade left over, so I'm just gonna add it directly to the pan to really enhance the flavor and to use up all the ingredients. And as our tofu is cooking, I'm just gonna flip it throughout, making sure that all the sides are nice and crispy and looks really good.
That's great, Alicia. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the nutritional benefits of soy. So in this meal, soy, the tofu is our protein. Now, soy is actually a complete protein, meaning it contains all of our essential amino acids. This is not the case with a lot of other plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, also great sources of protein, but just not that complete protein. So that's kind of a nice feature. Soy products and tofu are also a great source of omega-3s. Omega-3 fatty acids are great for heart health, brain health, eyes, as well as inflammation, decreasing inflammation. So that's a benefit. Another benefit is they are full of what are called isoflavones. So these are phytochemicals, antioxidants. That's where some of that anti-inflammatory property comes from, as well as helping reduce actually the risk of different types of cancer.
So now my tofu is almost done cooking. I have it at a nice golden crispy color. So now that I have my pan with a little bit of oil and it's nice and hot, I'm gonna start making the veggies and the sauce. So I have my veggies prepped right here, and I'm just gonna throw some of them in. I'm gonna cook these until they're nice and tender, and then I'll add my sauce. Now that I've let my veggies cook in the oil for roughly about 5 minutes, I'm gonna add my sauce. So right here we have the sauce all mixed together, and we're just gonna pour all of that in. We're just gonna let that sit and thicken. Now that I've added my sauce and it's nice and hot, we're able to now start our plating. So I'm gonna start by putting the rice on the plate. And plating is a great opportunity to sort of be creative with your food as well. So don't be afraid to try anything new and whatever looks nice. So here I have my rice. Now I'm gonna put my veggies on top. Next, we have the tofu that we made. And last, you can really add any garnishes to your plate. So I personally really like sesame seeds on my stir fry, as well as even just some microgreen sprouts on top.
Thanks, Alicia. So here we have our plated dish, and we also have our leftover veggies and rice. So definitely keep these to use as leftovers in a different meal. The vegetables are great to be used in dips. You can bring them for lunch. They're great in omelets for breakfast. You can even freeze them to use them in soups or sauces in the future. And rice, again, is fairly versatile and you can use it in a different meal. And the other thing I just wanted to mention too is don't be afraid if your meal does not turn out looking the exact same. Also, in terms of budget and being more cost effective, if you wanted to skip the microgreens and the sesame seeds, that's fine too. The nutritional value is still there and you've still made a great meal.
For sure. Thanks, Trish. So I think we're ready to move on to our next meal.